My name is Vijaya. I teach for a living. In fact, watching the test, the GRE, the GMAT interests me, especially when it is going to change. So naturally, now GRE is on my mind. Now, some of you who are interested in the GRE, the change, would have visited the ETS website and gathered a lot of information, orders from the official publications of ETS. Now, I too did do a peep into the ETS website. Now, a whole lot of general stuff I have found. But here is how I have understood some of the items which required a second look. Now, why are they changing the GRE? Now, the earlier GRE received a lot of criticism because it was full of words. You need to memorize the meanings and recognize their opposites, or maybe a relationship with another word to answer many of the questions in the verbal section. Of course, there was a little more into the verbal section than the vocabulary in the form of sentence completion and the reading comprehension. But by and large, the GRE English section has been more of a vocabulary oriented, and there hasn't been hugely any mathematical reasoning tested in the quantitative section except for the quantitative comparisons. So it was biased toward an emphasis on vocabulary. Now, the new change is that the vocabulary is minimized. Now, that doesn't mean the vocabulary is completely removed. The vocabulary is there still, but at present it's going to be more understanding the context of the use of the vocabulary than merely recalling and recognize the meanings in a context of antonyms or analogies. So you have more complex sentence contextual questions wherein you could even get a paragraph with a few blanks, and overall understanding of the passage is what is required for us to answer the question. One would wonder, how do they do this with the paper-based test, that is adaptive testing? Now, I took a look at some of those questions given there. Yes, there is still an emphasis on vocabulary, but just knowing the meanings of those words alone is simply not going to help anyone. The preparation now, I think, should be towards doing a lot of analysis of passages of varied kinds. So this emphasis on reasoning in the verbal and the quantitative. In the quantitative also there is going to be data analysis questions. It's not going to be on computation, application of formula. It's more of reasoning, wherein you'll have to devise a strategy and then answer the questions. Now, an interesting factor of the new GRE I've also observed is, in fact, I'm just going through the website now. It says you can take the paper-based or the computer-based test. Now, it has been like that in the past also. They can compare between these two paper-based and computer-based test scores. There is something called an equating thing that they do. That's a statistical procedure. So that is one of the features. The second thing I observed is that it says section adaptive. So that would mean, as the description here goes, that the performance in the first section will determine how the questions are going to be in the second section, both in the verbal and in the quantitative. Now, I wonder, how do they do that in the paper-based test? In all probability, they could give a wide range of questions, medium, higher order questions in the second section. So your performance in that can be considered on par with, let us say, a computer-based test wherein the second section is chosen based on your performance in the first. I think that is what they would be doing. Anyway, we'll have to wait and watch till August to see what real test takers have to say. Now, what are those changes in the questions within the verbal? Now, if you were to see, the analogies and antonyms have completely gone out. A lot of emphasis on reasoning now. In fact, it's very interesting to observe that some of the questions in the reading comprehension here looks very similar. In fact, 99.9% similar to critical reasoning questions of the GMAT. Now, they have done an interesting blend of reading comprehension and critical reasoning in the GRE. So, this test is now almost on par with the GMAT. In a way, it is good. Whatever reasoning skills that we are going to build up when we prepare for the GRE, those reasoning skills are going to be very useful in graduate study and thereafter. Much better than, let's say, the meanings of those lexical dictionary words we may not use at all. So here is more functional English, more that we use in debates and discussions and paper presentations and for literary purposes. I think it is a good step in that direction and minimizes the difference between the GMAT and the GRE. That could also be one reason that these schools may be taking the GRE instead of the GMAT score. Of course, then GMAT is going to change next year. We shall discuss it some other time. Do people get, they say, an unscored section? It has been there in the previous tests also over the years, and an experimental section. Will you get both? It's very unlikely. It's very unlikely that you get an experimental and an unscored other section, research section. So you could get one complete section, but the questions in an experimental research section can be recognized in that. The number of questions otherwise which is there in the scored section, the number of questions won't be the same in the research section, and it will also be labeled at the research section. You can maybe choose, you may get an option either to choose to answer or maybe to skip it. If you were to look at the math section, now they've given a lot of description on what would be there in the math in terms of the areas covered. I think that's a good indicator for people to start working on. Remember, you have some statistics now, a lot of graphs, coordinate geometry. I think the quantitative reasoning this time will go a bit higher in difficulty than how the test has been so far. And now, interestingly, they are calling it reasoning, so you can expect much more this thing, because otherwise GRE did not have much of a very challenging math. I think that challenge would be the same. Essays don't seem to be very different from what they have been, but interesting, they have introduced a new method to identify if any malpractice happens in the exam. So it is not advised that anybody mug up from all these essay lists available, or write essays together with groups, friends, and then go and deliver it very similar way. They have a similarity detection software which would identify if the essay that you have written has a lot of similarity with some other essay somewhere. So that can cause trouble. It's better to be well prepared, write your own way of presenting it. One of the interesting observations I saw in this website is that they themselves admit that the shift is from the existing test, that is rote learning, to cognitive learning. So that exactly is what we were looking forward to in the GRE, and it's a welcome change. Instead of simply mugging up words and just vomiting it out onto the test, now you have cognitive, higher levels of thinking. At least they have realized that the GRE test takers are a thinking lot, and they have reached a point in study time that they can think and answer questions of a higher order than merely use words what they memorize. Passages, a lot more passages now, but fortunately for you, some passages, up to 10 passages you can get, unlike, let's say, the 4 passages in the previous examination. But the passages are going to be very short, small passages. Except for 2, you could get some tough questions that way. There is no negative marking if you go wrong. They are only going to look at how many questions you have answered correctly. The errors are ignored. So it's better so you can make an error and not to worry about losing hard-earned score. Otherwise, always a fear whether I have answered the question rightly or not. Some people asked already, I myself being a trainer, some friends have asked whether it's advisable to prepare together. Now, a lot of people in the past for the current GRE used to study together, learn words together. It may be possible, but initially there is going to be a fear among test takers. Can I understand, the nuances, the subtleties in the meanings of paragraphs, how to analyze them, how to draw inferences from them, etc. There could be some difficulty in that. So if you can catch hold of a good trainer around, that is advisable. But once the fear goes, a lot of people may take the challenge of preparing on their own. So it's not very difficult. You can do a lot of reading, analysis of a lot of passages, and study questions which are of good quality, the official publications. It's just possible for you to think. The good study material, if you were to say now, we have to rely on the official publication. But the skill building you can do from a lot of sources, mathematical or English, or even vocabulary learning, which is necessary here. But I think you'll have to add idiom this into this, not merely vocabulary. Anyways, there is still time for you guys out there who are planning to think about the GRE for the next season. So here is some good news. The test is going to be better off. Good. You can use a calculator, a whole lot of stuff. I think we need to slightly go into it. I just visited the website and got this information. I need to take a GRE test, analyze my performance and see what sort of syllabus or what sort of skill building is necessary. I'll come back with more insights into the GRE sooner. Till then, bye. Thank you.